The sergeant stood in the mud outside headquarters with a folded piece of paper in his hand and a feeling in his chest that was harder to endure than enemy fire. It was December 1944, near Nancy, France. The sky was gray, the ground was frozen, and trucks from 3rd United States Army roared past in a steady stream toward the front. Men were preparing for another push into Germany. Engines growled, mechanics shouted over the wind. Somewhere in the distance, artillery rolled like thunder. But for Technical Sergeant Robert L. Harris, the war seemed to stop the moment he read one sentence. His promotion to Master Sergeant had been denied. No explanation, no warning, no reason. After 2 years of combat, after leading men through North Africa, Sicily, and France, after dragging wounded soldiers from burning vehicles and holding his platoon together under shell fire, he had been told, in effect, that none of it was enough. Harris read the order 3 times. The words did not change. His company commander had recommended him. His battalion commander had signed the papers. The men under him had already started calling him top, assuming the promotion was only a matter of time. Then the paperwork reached division headquarters and vanished into the machinery of the Army. Weeks later, it came back stamped denied. No comment. No official deficiency. Just denied. For a soldier, bullets were easier to understand than silence. The cold cut through his field jacket as he stood outside the headquarters building, a converted French schoolhouse with shattered windows covered by blankets. Inside, clerks moved stacks of papers from one desk to another, deciding careers with rubber stamps and fountain pens. Harris had faced German tanks and machine guns, yet he felt more helpless standing there than he ever had on the battlefield. The men in his company knew what this promotion meant. Master Sergeant was not merely another stripe. It was recognition that a man could be trusted with the discipline, welfare, and fighting readiness of an entire unit. It meant authority earned under fire. It meant that sacrifice had been seen. And Harris had paid for every stripe he wore. He had enlisted before the war and was a mechanic by trade. The kind of soldier who could repair a half-track in the dark while shells burst nearby. During the North African campaign, he kept vehicles running across dust and heat that destroyed engines. In the Allied invasion of Sicily, he organized recovery teams under sniper fire. In Normandy campaign, he pulled wounded men from a fuel truck moments before it exploded. He was not a polished officer favorite. He was something more valuable. He was the sergeant soldiers trusted when everything went wrong. That trust was built in small moments. When rations ran short, Harris ate last. When replacements arrived terrified and inexperienced, he showed them how to survive. When a young private froze under artillery fire, Harris sat beside him in a ditch until the barrage ended. He was demanding, blunt, and impossible to impress. But his men knew one thing with certainty. If Harris was there, they had a better chance of coming home. So when his promotion was denied, the company reacted with disbelief. Privates muttered in foxholes, corporals shook their heads, even officers were surprised. Captain James Ellsworth, Harris's company commander, had written in his recommendation that Harris possessed exceptional leadership, mechanical skill, and devotion to duty beyond that expected of any enlisted man. Lieutenant Colonel Walter Dean, the battalion commander, had endorsed it without hesitation. Somewhere above them, someone had decided no. The first rumor was that there were no vacancies. The second was that Harris lacked formal schooling. The third was that a staff officer at division headquarters simply did not like him. The third rumor was closest to the truth. Weeks earlier, Harris had clashed with Major Charles Wentworth, a supply officer known for polished boots and thin patience. During a fuel shortage, Wentworth had tried to divert gasoline intended for frontline vehicles to rear-area transport. Harris objected in front of witnesses, insisting that tanks and recovery trucks at the front would be stranded. Wentworth backed down, but he did not forget the embarrassment. In wartime, grudges could travel on official letterhead. Harris never saw the memo. He did not know that a note had been attached to his file describing him as temperamentally unsuitable for higher enlisted responsibility. No evidence, no formal counseling, just a sentence, typed by a resentful major with enough influence to poison a recommendation. The Army moved fast, and unfair decisions often stayed buried. Under most commanders, the story would have ended there, but this was Patton's Army. George S. Patton was many things to the men who served under him. Brilliant, demanding, fierce, unpredictable, he expected polished helmets, aggressive action, and relentless speed. He cursed freely and punished carelessness. Yet beneath the hard exterior was a commander obsessed with one principle. Ability mattered more than appearance, background, or politics. Patton had little patience for officers who protected their pride at the expense of good soldiers. He believed armies were built on competent sergeants. Wars may be fought with weapons, he often told his staff, but they are won by men. On the morning of December 11, Patton arrived at the division area during one of his rapid inspections. His ivory-handled pistols were strapped to his belt. His helmet bore the polished stars every soldier recognized instantly. Jeeps scattered from the road as his command car approached. Men straightened their uniforms. Officers checked their collars. Patton moved quickly, asking sharp questions about fuel, ammunition, maintenance, and readiness. He wanted answers, not excuses. As he inspected a motor pool, he stopped beside a half-track undergoing repairs. Harris was underneath the vehicle, his gloves black with grease, replacing a damaged drive component. He slid out, stood, and snapped to attention. Patton studied him for a moment. The general had an eye for experienced soldiers. Harris's jacket was faded. His face was worn by weather and fatigue. His sleeves carried multiple service stripes. His movements were calm and efficient. Patton asked his name, rank, and job. Harris answered crisply. Patton then asked a simple question. "Why are you still a technical sergeant?" For a second, no one spoke. Captain Ellsworth shifted uneasily. He had not intended to raise the issue during an inspection. But Patton's question left no room for evasion. Ellsworth explained that Harris had been recommended for promotion to Master Sergeant, but had been denied at division. Patton's expression changed. He turned to Harris and asked, "Were you given a reason?" "No, sir." That answer hung in the freezing air. Patton disliked many things. Unexplained incompetence was near the top of the list. He asked to see the promotion file immediately. Officers rushed toward headquarters. Clerks pulled folders from cabinets. Typewriters stopped. Word spread through the building with astonishing speed. General Patton was personally reviewing a sergeant's denied promotion. Inside the schoolhouse, Patton stood at a wooden desk as staff officers gathered around him. He flipped through the recommendation, reading each endorsement. Combat citations, performance reports, commendations, strong recommendations from every commander in the chain. Then he found the memo from Major Wentworth. Patton read it once. He looked up. "What is the basis for this statement?" Silence. Wentworth, pale and stiff, explained that Harris had displayed insubordinate tendencies. Patton asked for documentation. There was none. Counseling records? None. Disciplinary action? None. Witness statements? None. Patton's voice grew colder. "So this man's promotion was denied because you were offended." Wentworth tried to defend himself. Speaking of attitude and military bearing, Patton cut him off. The general had spent his life studying command. He knew that frontline units depended on leaders who solved problems, not on rear area officers who used paperwork as a weapon. Harris had proven himself in combat. Wentworth had produced a single unsupported opinion. To Patton, the comparison was insulting. He ordered Harris brought into the room. The sergeant entered, standing at attention before one of the most famous generals in the world. Patton held up the file. He asked Harris directly about the fuel dispute. Harris described the incident plainly. No self-pity, no anger. He stated that vehicles at the front needed the gasoline, and he had said so. Patton listened closely. Then he asked one final question. If the same situation happened again, what would you do? Harris did not hesitate. The same thing, sir. Several officers looked down, expecting Patton to interpret the answer as stubbornness. Instead, Patton smiled. That was exactly the answer he wanted. An army advancing across Europe could not function without men willing to challenge bad decisions when lives were at stake. Patton valued obedience, but he valued competence even more. He signed the promotion order on the spot. Technical Sergeant Robert L. Harris was promoted to Master Sergeant, effective immediately. But Patton was not finished. He instructed the adjutant to amend the effective date so Harris would receive back pay from the date the promotion should originally have taken effect. Weeks of lost pay would be restored. Recognition would not be delayed by bureaucratic spite. Then, Patton turned to Major Wentworth. In a voice heard by every officer in the room, he made it clear that personal grudges had no place in personnel decisions. If an officer could not separate pride from duty, that officer had no business judging combat leaders. The reprimand was devastating. Wentworth was removed from promotion review duties soon afterward and reassigned to a less influential post. In Patton's headquarters, trust was hard to earn and easy to lose. Outside, word spread through the camp faster than any official order. By afternoon, mechanics, drivers, clerks, and infantrymen were repeating the story. Patton had stepped into a routine inspection, uncovered an injustice, and corrected it within minutes. For enlisted men, the effect was enormous. Many soldiers feared senior officers were too distant to understand what happened below. Patton's action sent a different message. If a man proved himself in combat, his work mattered. Not everyone would be noticed, but merit still had a defender at the highest level. That evening, Harris returned to his company area wearing the new diamond on his sleeve. There was no formal ceremony, no band, no speech. The men saw the insignia as he stepped from his jeep, and a quiet cheer spread through the motor pool. Mechanics grinned. Drivers slapped his shoulder. One young private who had nearly broken under artillery in Normandy stood a little straighter. Their sergeant had not asked for special treatment. He had simply received what he had earned. Harris accepted the congratulations with typical restraint. He thanked Captain Ellsworth and went back to work checking vehicles for the next movement. By dawn, his unit would be on the road again. The war did not pause for personal victories. Just days later, the Battle of the Bulge erupted. German forces smashed into the Ardennes, creating the largest crisis on the Western Front. Patton wheeled Third Army north in one of the most famous maneuvers of the war. Roads clogged with tanks, trucks, artillery, and ambulances as thousands of vehicles pivoted through snow and ice toward Bastogne. Master Sergeant Harris was in the middle of it. His experience and authority now carried even greater weight. He organized repair teams around the clock, kept fuel and recovery vehicles moving, and made sure damaged equipment returned to action as quickly as possible. In winter conditions that destroyed engines and transmissions, his leadership helped sustain the advance. Soldiers did not measure leadership by speeches. They measured it by whether trucks started, whether ammunition arrived, and whether wounded men were evacuated. Harris delivered. Months later, as Allied armies crossed the Rhine River and pushed deep into Germany, he remained exactly what he had always been: a steady, reliable senior non-commissioned officer who placed mission and men above himself. The promotion did not change his character. It confirmed it. For Patton, the incident became one more example of how he viewed command. His public image was built on speed, discipline, and aggressive warfare. But veterans repeatedly recalled another side of him. He could be harsh, yet he often intervened when he believed capable soldiers were being treated unfairly. Patton understood something every successful commander learns. Authority is not protected by ignoring injustice. It is strengthened by correcting it. An army runs on orders, but it fights on trust. Privates trust corporals. Corporals trust sergeants. Sergeants trust commanders to recognize ability and act fairly. Once that trust breaks, efficiency suffers. Morale declines. Good leaders leave or stop caring. Patton saw fairness not as kindness, but as combat power. That is why this small incident mattered. No battle was named after it. No monument marks the schoolhouse where it occurred. Yet to the soldiers who heard the story, it revealed what kind of commander stood above them. A general responsible for hundreds of thousands of men had stopped during wartime to examine one denied promotion. He asked for facts. He exposed bias. He corrected the record. He restored lost pay. And he sent every soldier under his command a message more powerful than any speech. If you do your job and earn your place, someone is paying attention. Years after the war, veterans of Third Army continued to repeat stories like this one. They remembered Patton's temper and his relentless demands, but they also remembered moments when he defended enlisted men who had proven themselves under fire. Those stories endured because they felt deeply personal. Every veteran knew someone like Harris. The dependable sergeant who fixed impossible problems, protected younger soldiers, and asked for little in return. Such men rarely appeared in headlines, yet armies depended on them. Patton knew that. He had studied military history his entire life. He admired bold generals, but he also understood that victories were built on the shoulders of disciplined, non-commissioned officers. Without them, plans remained words on maps. With them, divisions could cross continents. On a freezing day in France, that belief moved from theory to action. A folded paper said one man's service was not enough. Patton looked at the facts and reached a different conclusion. The sergeant had done his duty. The army would do its own. And somewhere amid the mud, engine noise, and distant artillery, justice arrived with the stroke of a fountain pen.